Scars of Summer is an esoteric anime game that is one of the many summer break life sims that this genre often gravitates towards. Not to hate on these games, it's a frequently used premise for good reason: maximum nostalgia and coziness. The difference between this and many of those is that this game has a strong focus on a particular tag. This tends to be pretty polarizing content for people. Either it's the greatest goon ever, or was handcrafted by Satan himself and must be erased from the internet. Even if you're not a fan of the tag, you still might find some charm in the game. Only one way to find out, I suppose. Let's get into it. Our protagonist, Keita, is dropped off by his mother at the remote village that he used to live in as a kid for the summer break. It's there that he is reunited with his childhood friend and athletic star of the local school, Ryoka. Keita has always had a crush on her, but could never work up the courage to say anything. For this summer, he will be staying at her family home, where they both will be looked after by Ryoka's older sister, Saki. During his stay here, Keita has free rein to explore around the village, school, and neighboring towns. However, the game does run on a calendar time-day system, so any exploration or event triggers will progress time until eventually you will have to sleep and enter the next day. The two big major events are the summer festival and the school trip, which happen around the end of next month. The trip also signifies the end of summer break, so you have a limited number of days to set up your relationships before facing the final decisive events. Certain actions while exploring will give increases to Keita's social stats. Building these up is needed for accessing certain endings. In truth, Ryoka has also been harboring romantic feelings for Keita ever since they were kids, but is unable to express her feelings to him. This is illustrated in her affection graph, which shows how she feels about the various locals. She starts with highest affection points for Keita, but that can shift as she interacts more with others. While Keita and Ryoka are hanging out, they run into Oyama, who is known as kind of the old village deadbeat. He is frequently making attempts to get closer to Ryoka, but is always rebuffed with extreme prejudice. Oyama mentions that the village mayor has been looking for her to talk about something. The two head there, but Keita is then asked to leave as this is a private conversation. The mayor reveals to Ryoka a secret long-held village tradition. Once village girls come of age, they are paired up with a man to participate in a special ritual. The two partners are secluded off for 3 days, wherein they solidify the bond between each other. The girl is allowed to choose which guy will be her ritual partner. However, due to the village's emphasis on respect for the elderly, the partner must be an older man. Ryoka is obviously shocked at all this, but the ritual isn't for a few days, and she is expected to take this time to come to a partner decision. She can't see herself leaving the village, and she fears that if she refuses, then they'll bring her sister into this. While that's happening, Keita takes the train downtown to check out the cram school, where he comes across a vagrant who is leering at some students. Paying him no mind, Keita heads inside to see how it is, but feels he could more effectively study at home, so he just takes a pamphlet and leaves. Back at the house, Ryoka is having trouble with some summer homework. She is given some help by Keita, but feels like she is burdening him, upon which she sees the cram school pamphlet that he left out. Figuring that having academic prospects could potentially help with her current village predicament, she decides to check it out the following day. She finds this cram school to be particularly tough and has a lot of trouble keeping up with the other students. She's also having difficulties making any friends there, so for the lunch break, she just finds a quiet place to herself in a nearby park. There, she bumps into the vagrant from before. He is taken aback by how kind she is to him despite his appearance. They strike up a conversation, and she opens up a bit about how overwhelmed she's been feeling lately, and her failings at the cram school environment aren't helping. Realizing he hasn't any food of his own, she gives him her lunch before saying goodbye for the day. That night, Keita is having a late snack when Ryoka finds him and drags him to the beach. They get in the water for a short bit and reminisce about old times. The next day, Ryoka is wondering what she's going to do about this ritual when she is approached by Oyama with a proposition. He suggests that she choose him, as he'll promise not to take any serious action during their ritual time. She quickly shoots down the idea, wherein he begins to beg her to pick him for this. As she's leaving in disgust, he remarks that he is the only option where she gets through this, unmarred. Back at the cram school, Ryoka still isn't seeing much improvement and has been feeling discouraged. She has been making it a habit to chat with the vagrant after cram and bring him some lunch. He reveals that his name is Tajiri and he actually used to live in Iriki, their home village. Apparently he had left the village over a decade ago, but his house is still there, just abandoned. He also mentions that he knew Ryoka's late father back in the day, and they used to be best friends. People in the village tend to avoid the subject of her parents, so she's happy to find somebody who knew him and will talk about this. That night, Ryoka convinces Keita to come to the school gym with her. She wants the court all to themselves so she can help him practice his shots. Unfortunately, Keita never makes a basket before a teacher finds them, and they must flee. The next day, while roaming around the village, Ryoka happens to overhear two of the old farmers talking to each other. They both express their long-held desires to be the ones chosen as her ritual partner. This acts as a shock to her, who never knew these men were carrying such motives for all these years. She begins to question her entire life and if she ever really knew anybody in this village. After giving it a lot of thought, Ryoka heads to Oyama's shack and agrees to the plan so long as he keeps his word. He makes one new stipulation, that she helps with some minor anxiety relief right now, so that he is not so restless during the actual ritual. Ryoka is angry at this change in the deal, but ultimately agrees, so long as the ask is nothing too major, and he will hold up his end of the bargain when the time comes. Ryoka continues to slip behind her cram school peers, but she does find comfort in talking with her new friend there. Apparently, Tajiri was very competitive with Ryoka's father. They challenged each other over the affection of Ryoka's mother. After losing the woman he loved, Tajiri just couldn't stand to be in the village anymore, and that's why he left. He remarks that Ryoka's mother was the village beauty, and that she is the spitting image of her. Some cram students spot Ryoka at the park and begin to gossip to each other, to which Tajiri yells and scares them off. He suggests that the two of them continue this chat back at his tent, away from the prying eyes of her whispering classmates. Ryoka hesitates a bit, but agrees. Back at his tent, Ryoka finds that she feels much more comfortable here, as it reminds her of the village atmosphere. After feeling so stiff from the difficult cram classes, Tajiri offers to help her stretch a bit to relieve some stress. The two begin to grow much closer as she spends a bit more time at his tent. That night, Keita and the two sisters decide to shoot off some fireworks. They all enjoy this last hurrah as the final days of summer are approaching. It ends a bit prematurely as Ryoka tries to handle a more heavy-duty rocket. The next day, Oyama's demands are getting more intense. Ryoka doesn't like this, but knows his cooperation is needed for the ritual. So she, begrudgingly, meets his requests. Later, after cram school, some heavy rain comes down. Ryoka finds that Tajiri's tent has collapsed amidst the downpour, and so she helps set it back up. The two of them head inside to dry off. Tajiri offers a massage to repay her help, and things eventually begin to escalate. Ryoka is completely out of sorts with how she feels about this man who is her only paternal connection. Before things go past the point of no return, Ryoka quickly makes an excuse and leaves the tent. That evening, Keita can't find Saki anywhere. He checks out the town hall, where she occasionally helps out, and finds that one of the rooms is closed off and guarded by an old man. Keita climbs up into the rafters and peeks into the room. He finds that the old townsmen are utilizing Saki as a source of anxiety relief. She must completely adhere to all their drunken whims and demands. During all this, the men reminisce about the village ritual years ago and remark about how a new one will take place in just a few days. Keita is shocked by all he has seen, but wants to investigate this supposed ritual further. Later that evening, Keita and the sisters are having dinner, when Ryoka notices that the other two seem especially awkward about something. Ryoka has always been a bit jealous of Saki's femininity, but now she starts to wonder if there is something going on between them. Ryoka is later called over by Oyama, where he notices her paranoia over her sister and friend. He takes this opportunity to fuel these suspicions, to lower her self-esteem. It works, and Oyama is able to get much closer to her as a result. After a big cram school test the next day, Ryoka wants to seriously talk things out with Tajiri about what happened between them. However, before she can, she is pressured to join an after-test hangout by a group of schoolboys. Ryoka misses her chance to have a chat with Tajiri as the group quickly moves past him. It's not too long into the party that Ryoka doesn't seem to feel like herself after being given some drinks. Before anything serious can happen, Tajiri busts in and gets her out of there. Ryoka apologizes for ignoring him before, to which he invites her back to the tent to rest a bit after her ordeal. Still being a bit woozy, Ryoka doesn't rebuff his behavior in the tent. Tajiri enjoys something he has not had in years and claims her wizard potential. She spends the rest of the night there. Saki hears about Ryoka being involved in some kind of trouble downtown, so she heads there. She does volunteer work in the area, so she has no trouble finding the park. There, she is stopped by a group of vagrants who say they know what she's looking for. She follows them back to their tent, only for things to go in a different direction. They keep her there for the rest of the night, and they find a variety of uses for her to fulfill. Before she leaves the next day, they take some photographic material for incentivizing her later on. The day of the ritual has finally come. Keita waits until night to sneak into the shrine. He is only able to see silhouettes from where he is, so it's difficult to identify any of the figures involved in this. Each man is given a short time to plead their case to the maiden. Oyama is particularly bold with his allotted time, going much further than any of the other men. At the end, Ryoka chooses Oyama as her partner. The other men are completely blindsided by the decision and must leave in frustrated disappointment. Before Keita can see any further, he accidentally kicks something over and must flee the premises before the mayor spots him. The ritual takes place over 3 days, in which the two must act as a married couple, cohabitating in the shrine's living space. Over the course of the ritual time, Oyama gradually wears down Ryoka's willpower with his daily requests and nightly persistence. By the 3rd day, Oyama has completely won, and the two spend the entire day and night on the same activity. Finally able to return home, her excuse for being gone was a basketball tournament trip. She spends a long while at the beach, contemplating what happened. Keita comes to talk to her, but she's not really in the mood. The next day, Ryoka returns to cram school, only to find that her reputation has hit an all-time low due to rumors that she was the one that instigated what happened with those schoolboys a while back. Ryoka is feeling a bit lonely and goes to see Tajiri. Her memory of that rainy night is a bit hazy, but she does know what happened between them. She heads inside his tent, looking for some kind of comfort in his company. She ends up staying the night there. The next day, Ryoka comes home to find Oyama there. He wants to talk about their new relationship, but Ryoka insists that what happened during the ritual was a one-time thing. It doesn't take too long before Oyama whittles down her defenses and gets her where he wants. And she falls totally under his control. Oyama locks the house door so as not to be disturbed, which leaves Keita unable to get inside later. He can see silhouette activity from the window, but was unsure if Saki just had company or something, and he felt too awkward to knock. This goes on for the whole night. Saki never comes home, so Keita just has to sleep outside today. The following day is Ryoka's birthday. She texts Keita to apologize for the door being locked all night, claiming she had forgot it was locked before going to bed. Keita says he understands and asks if she has time to go somewhere, with today being what it is. Ryoka apologizes again and says she already has plans with someone. Keita asks with who, but she just deflects the question. Later that day, Ryoka meets with Oyama when a sudden downpour hits, and the two take shelter from the rain in his shack. They find a variety of ways to pass the time. And she ends up spending the night there. A few days later, and it's time for the festival. Keita looks around, but neither of the sisters are anywhere to be found. Meanwhile, Ryoka brings Tajiri into the village to help restore his long-abandoned house. She also talked to the mayor and got his permission for Tajiri to take up residence there again if he so chooses. Tajiri can't thank Ryoka enough for all she's done for him, and the two spend a heartfelt night together. The next day, Ryoka is worried because her usual time hasn't arrived. She takes a test and it confirms her suspicions. However, she can't say for sure whether Oyama or Tajiri is the man this is connected to. Ryoka decides to take the night to sort out her true feelings between the three guys in her life: Keita, Oyama, and Tajiri. The day of the Seaside Trip has finally come. Keita sees this as the last chance to confess his feelings before he has to leave. He invites Ryoka to his assigned hotel room, and there he finally summons the courage to confess. Ryoka turns him down and confesses that she is already in love with someone else. And that someone is Oyama. Keita can't believe that the man she had always hated and rebuffed was the one she now loved. He asks for a reason and if he did anything to coerce her. She explains a bit of the secret village custom and says that she's okay with how things turned out. Keita curses himself for his inaction and cowardice that caused the love of his life to be stolen away by another man. The two didn't say anything to each other after that. A few years later, Ryoka is happily married to Oyama with children. Despite being together for a while at this point, they still act like newlyweds every day. Saki is also in a family way, although it's unclear if it's due to her continued dealings with the village drunks or the vagrant group. Keita and Ryoka never reconnected after that summer. The two wonder what could have been, but it seems it was destined to just be a passing crush that faded with youth. All in all, I think the game is pretty good. The life sim aspects aren't as robust as some of these other summer break games, but I think the system of competing relationships is decently well done. I only went through a small few of the potential character storylines, so if the game interests you, then I recommend you try it for yourself. There's also some kind of expansion or sequel thing in the works, so visit the dev's CN page if you're eager for more. As always, remember to apply the publisher's patch to the Steam or GOG version before playing. Thanks for watching, and if you want the unaltered version of this video, then check the description.